I'm going to demonstrate how to use the box method to factor a polynomial where the leading coefficient is not a 1. This is a method that uses factoring by grouping, but we organize it in a slightly different way. The steps are very similar. So the first thing you want to do is you want to create a box that's divided into 4 equal sections. In the upper left-hand corner, you're going to put the first term of your polynomial. And the bottom right-hand corner, we're going to put the last term of the polynomial. And now we're going to take those two terms and multiply them together. So 3x squared times negative 4 gives us a negative 12x squared. Now we want to factor this negative 12x squared to find all the possible combinations. And you'll notice that I am not dealing with the negative sign yet. I'm just looking at the combinations of the 12. So I know that 1x times 12x, 2x times 6x, and 3x times 4x all give me 12x squared. And I know that in order to get a negative 12, one of these factors needs to be negative. But I'm going to decide on which one is going to be negative based on what happens when I add these factors together instead of multiplying them, because I want to find the combination of when they're added together to give me the negative 11x. So I'm going to change these from multiplication problems into addition problems by adding a plus sign and then making a decision as to where that negative sign should be. Well, I know that the 1x and the 12x, when I add them together, I get 13x, but I want one of them to be negative, so I can make the 1 a negative, or I can make the 12 a negative. When I make the 1 a negative, I get a positive 11x. If I make the 12 a negative, I get my negative 11x. It doesn't work for the 2 and the 6. When I make the 2 negative, I get a positive 4. When I make the 6 negative, I get a negative 4. And when I'm working with the 3x and the 4x, when I make one negative or the other, I either get a positive x or a negative x. So the first group are the ones I'm going to work with. I messed it up. Okay, so now you can see that when I take 1x times a negative 12x, I get my negative 12x squared. And when I add 1x to a negative 12x, I get a negative 11x. So this is the combination that works. And these are the two terms that I need to place in the two empty boxes. It doesn't matter which one goes into which box. That's totally your choice. So now I have a 3x squared in the top left. In the top right, I have a negative 12x, bottom left, 1x, and bottom right, negative 4. Now I need to factor these. And I'm going to look straight across the top row, and I'm going to look at how 3 and negative 12 are related to each other. If I factor out a 3, that will work, and I can also factor out an x. So I'm going to do that first. And now I can take this 3x and I can divide it into each of the numbers that are in the top row. 3x divides into 3x squared x times, and 3x divides into negative 12x negative 4 times. Another thing you can do to get this x and this negative 4 is to go straight up the column and look for the greatest common factor. So if you look at 3x squared and 1x, the greatest common factor is an x. And if you look at negative 12 and negative 4, the greatest common factor is a negative 4. One of the problems with doing it this way is that it's sometimes hard to know whether this factor should be positive or negative. And the way to figure it out is if you multiply it together using this matrix, the 3x times the x should give you back this 3x squared. The 3x times whatever is up at the top here should give you your negative 12x. If it doesn't, you've got the wrong sign. So we know that these first two terms need to multiply together to give us this 3x squared. So we know they both have to be positive, and that's going to be true no matter what polynomial we use, because we always want to have a positive as our first term. And so it's the second term that the sign would change. So that's a good way to check. Multiply them together, and it should give you the box in the number in the box. Now we need to get the last term here, and we can use this x here. We know that whatever number the x multiplies has to give us back this 1x, and we know the only thing we can multiply by x to get 1x is the number 1. Another thing you can do is look at this bottom row and pull out the greatest common factor. Again, that would be a 1, and we know it has to be a positive 1 because we want this 1x to be positive. So now we have pulled out our two factors, x minus 4 and 3x plus 1. In order to check this, you can use FOIL. X times 3x, first times first, gives us the 3x squared. When you multiply outer times outer and inner times inner, we get x times 1 gives us 1x. And negative 4 times 3x gives us negative 12x. When we add those together, we get our middle term, negative 11x. And then last times last, negative 4 times the positive 1 gives us the negative 4.